Hi again then guys, and welcome to episode 11 of Party in the Back, the review series for GranTurismo 6's selection of estate cars and wagons. And in this episode we're featuring another variant of the newer shape Subaru Legacy wagon. This is probably my favourite of the newer shape Legacies that are on the game. I still view the older model in the same way as I mentioned in that Cars episode, that it's a great sleeper. But if you're more of a fan of newer shaped vehicles, I think this is probably going to be the majority of people's favourite of the newer Legacies visually, because it's arguably the closest to being an Impreza visually. It has the bonnet scoop, the more aggressive bumper layout, and it really just begs to be coloured in the iconic Subaru colours of the blue and gold. It's almost the most WRX-esque model of the Legacy. It's the closest really to actually being an Impreza wagon in the way it feels, the way it handles and the way it performs. Now it's to be noted that this actually is not the strongest Legacy in the game in terms of spec. We haven't actually featured that model yet. That's the 2.0 GT model. This is the 2.0 GT Spec B, which looks better but isn't quite as strong on paper. Now, that being said, it's still a very good wagon. It costs a fraction over 30,000 credits, so like most of the wagons from Subaru, it's very well priced, or like all of the wagons in fact, it's very well priced from Subaru. It's powered by a 2-litre turbo engine, and it produces a pretty healthy 546 horsepower fully tuned. So again, not at all far off the Impreza or the other Legacies. It puts out 388 pound-feet of torque and weighs in at a reasonably good 1188 kilos, and that is with, of course, all-wheel drive, as all of the Legacies on the game have. It puts out 460 horsepower per tonne, which isn't the highest of the series, but is still pretty decent. That's around higher-end hot hatch territory. And it sits at smack dab on 550 pp, which is pretty cool. It means it's fairly easy to round it up to its maximum potential. Now, as far as whether or not you should buy this model, well, as I said, it's not the strongest on paper. It's not as powerful as the regular 2.0 GT model, but not by much. It's only around 10 horsepower less and around 20-ish pound-feet of torque less. It does also weigh a little bit more, around 10 kilos more. But overall, I still prefer this one, to be completely honest, because the 2.0 GT, although being more powerful, lighter and having more torque, and technically being a better sleeper than this car, because this is a slightly better looking car, I would say, I still prefer this one. Primarily, I must admit, for the look. It's just a better looking car, in my opinion. If you're looking for a sleeper, well, obviously we'll cover that in the final Legacy of the series, which will be in a couple of episodes' time. But this model, I would say, is the looker of the Legacy series. If you're looking for the Legacy which is the most stylish, that stands out the most, is the most, as I mentioned, Impreza-ish of the Legacies, it's definitely this one. It has that signature Subaru sportiness to the look and to the way it drives. The handling is very good. Compared primarily to the only version of the newer range, which we've already reviewed, which was the 3-litre naturally aspirated version, I would say this is a much sharper car overall. Not just the fact that it's turbocharged, but the way it handles itself, the way it handles its weight, the way it corners, just feels much more on its toes than the 3-litre. The 3-litre feels a little bit dull, almost like driving a Saab. It's nothing against Saab, but it's just not the kind of thing which puts you in the mood for racing fast. Whereas this car feels and looks the part. It feels ready to be thrown around the track. As with all the Legacies, it makes a great rally car as well. And also, as with all of the Legacies, it's cheap. So you get great value for money from the Subarus. And as far as whether or not you should actually buy this model, if you're a Subaru fan, but maybe the Impreza's a little bit too mainstream for you, which I can completely understand, this is a very viable alternative. It doesn't have some of the advantages of the Impreza in terms of weight, but it's still a very good alternative. It's almost like a slightly watered down, more sensible version of the Impreza STI wagon. It feels as a Subaru should, it's sporty, it's competitive, there's tons of grip, and it's one of the most, I would say, beginner-friendly wagons of the series. Not necessarily the most, but one of the most. So, if you're looking for a good all-round wagon, which isn't necessarily the fastest in a straight line, but is just good all-round and fun to drive, this really does have you covered. So, that's it for this episode. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.